Handouts are at the door, and I'm assuming most of us have those. When our kids were growing up, we had a devotional every night, and especially when they were younger. And it's out of print now, but this wonderful little book, Jesus, the Friend of Children, and we just read through that. But every night we had questions. And one of the things I wanted all of our kids to know by the time they were 5 was that I wanted them to know the 12 sons of Jacob, and I wanted them to know all of the kings of Judah in the Old Testament. And you think, why would you do that? Well, you go through the list and you go Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin. If they know all the sons of Israel, then they know all of the tribes. Most of you will understand the term deer in the headlight look. You know, some kids will be in Bible class and something comes up and they just have no idea what it's about. And if they knew all of the tribes and if they knew all of the kings of Judah, then they had a peg to put everything on, and we had keywords for every book of the Old Testament. And a part of the reason for doing that was that you, and even as little bitty people, you listen to a Bible class different if you bring something to class. Our oldest daughter had a doll named Sarah, and Heather and Sarah just went everywhere. And Heather was pretty tall and lanky, and she dropped Sarah one morning. She was in my lap. So I just took an elbow and a knee, and she reached down and she got Sarah. And the preacher said, today we're going to study about Nehemiah. And Heather hugged Sarah, her doll, and she said, 3 years old, today we're going to talk about the man who built the walls of Jerusalem. And so she's talking to Sarah, her doll, to tell Sarah this is what Bible class is going to be. And so we're going to look at kind of and I don't watch any soap operas, so I'm totally ignorant when I say this, but we're going to be reading through the general hospital of the book of Genesis tonight. Okay? This is just open-ended, and there's no correct answer. This is just a lady's question. How would it be for you and your sister to be married to the same husband? How would that work?
Not well.
Someone give me some help.
No.
Okay, one, I wouldn't like it. What?
Well, now I'd say take him and go.
Okay. You can have him. Yeah, that's not current tense. That's hypothetical tense. But I just think about that, and I think, can I use the word cruel? This is from my point of view. Could there be anything any crueler than your sister is prettier than you are, your sister is da-da-da-da-da-da-da, you fill in the blank, and then the only word I know to use is competing. You are competing with your sister for the attention of your husband. And the tragedy tonight is that Leah is going to have 6 sons, and 6 sons later, she still doesn't feel any more love than when this all started. And it's just really, really sad in some ways. I'd like for you to turn, there's a colored page, the very back page on the inside of the back page. And knowing we have people online who can't see this, I'll just explain what this is. But here's a family tree, all right? And Isaac and Rebekah, and then we're familiar with Esau and Jacob. And then what we have, and the guys are in blue, then we're going to have Leah, and her handmaid is going to be Zilpah. And then Rachel is in the far right, and her handmaid is Bilhah. And then there are the 12 sons that are born to 2 sisters and 2 handmaids. during this period of time. And then you go on, and if you look at Levi, the third one, and Levi is significant because he's involved with the priesthood, and through Levi, Kohath, and then you go down through the sons that go from there, Amram, and then you're going to end up with Aaron and Moses. And this is just, there's many other people in between and other things, but this is just kind of a visual picture of the family tree. Now, the other thing, and we'll repeat this, I'd like you to turn to the back page. And we're gonna read into this and read some other things, but I wanted to start, we'll start and end with this. It's amazing to me how God fulfills His will without ever violating people's free will. God brings about His purposes. God brings about His plans. And when He tells Abraham, starting at 75, you're going to have descendants, and through you I'm going to bless all nations. When I think of this part of the Old Testament, it's like a man, and then we're going to have a small family, and then we're going to have Jacob's family, and then by the time they go down into Egypt and they come out, 605,000 fighting men come out of Egypt. And we'll come back to that a little bit later to kind of think about that. And the promises that God makes to Abraham, whether it is if you can count the sand on the seashore, if you can count the stars of heaven, then that is His promise. One of the ways that He fulfills this is through Jacob's family. So we'll do this quickly, and again, for those who are listening, we're going to do each of the sons. We'll mention who their mother is, and then in Genesis, starting in 29, the verse will kind of explain each child has a name. I'm processing for a second. Every name is kind of in your face to the competition. Every name is kind of na 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 na. And so Leah being, I don't know how to say this, girls. Help me. She's not as pretty. She's a little bit more plain. What do you say?
She's got nice eyes.
She's got nice eyes. Good personality. But that's why my heart goes out to her, in that she doesn't have the same physical attractiveness of her younger sister, and she's going to keep having these sons in hopes that finally this time this will even things out, or finally this time my husband will really love me. And maybe the tragedy of this whole story is that 6 sons later, I think she still feels as desperate as she did when it started. Reuben, the first, mother Leah, behold a son, is what his name means. Now think about that. Rachel, every time you hear the word Reuben, I want you to realize, na 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 na, behold a son. Then Simeon is going to be her second son, and God hears. Oh, He hadn't heard your prayer, He's heard mine. You see what I'm saying? Every one of these sons, when you look at this through the lens of the rivalry between the two sisters, every son is named kind of one up in terms of my having the child, and then you put yourself in Rachel's place, and she's trying, and she can't have sons, she can't get pregnant, and it's kind of like the older sister just has kids without any problem at all. And the longer this goes, I would sense the more frustrated Rachel becomes. And you have both girls equally unhappy about different things, but still competing in the rivalry at the same time. This is the one that I always notice. Levi, who is going to eventually become Aaron, who's going to become the high priest, offer the sacrifices. Levi, the third son of Leah, means joined. Oh, now this time my husband will be joined to me. We will be united to each other in true and full love. Then here comes Judah. And I just put, this is Leah, I just put 4-0. I mean, if you, however you want to look at this from Rachel's point of view, you know, for whatever reason, God is not allowing you to fall pregnant, become pregnant, and then this sister that you're competing with, then here comes the fourth one. And again, kind of in your face, praise, I will praise God for this. Well, out of, what words would you use? Desperation, the anger, the hurt, the feelings. It's like, well, if I can't get pregnant, then I have a handmaid, and so let's bring her in. And then we're going to have 2 children through Bilhah. The first is Dan. And so I'm sure this comes from Rachel. God has given me a son, and God has judged me, meaning he's decided in my favor. And then Naphtali is the second son of Bilhah, the handmaid, and it means wrestling. With mighty wrestling, I have wrestled with my sister, and I have prevailed. But Leah's going to tell you what, sure, the score is 4-2. Then Leah hasn't been able to become pregnant, so she brings her handmaid in so that she can keep bumping the score up. And so here comes Gad. The word fortune, good fortune has come. And then Asher is Leah's handmaid, the second son. And this is the word happy am I, for women will call me happy. And the score is now 6-2. I'm sorry, this sounds like a baseball game, but they know very well what the count is. And you can just imagine the interactions in the household and the sense of, well, let me just stop. Ladies, help me. If you're Rachel, how are you feeling now? You're behind 6-2, but just help me. How do you feel?
Having the handmaiden doesn't help the problem.
Okay.
It's not. I doubt that she felt like
Can I use the word
it's really her son.
cosmetic? I mean, it's better than nothing, but.
And it's just someone else who's been with my husband.
Yes. Anyone else? Ladies, how do you feel?
Probably frustrated as much as anything.
Just frustrated. Just, why isn't God listening to my prayers?
She's probably yelling at her sister, controlling little hoodlums running around the house when she didn't have it.
Well, exactly. And then you look at each of these names, the children are named in your face for the other sister. So if you call their name, then every time you do that, then I think they are named deliberately to, can I use the word antagonize? Exasperate the other sister by.
They didn't have any daughters during this time, or it just wasn't recorded?
We're going to have one recorded, and then we're going to see when Joseph is sent into Egypt, his brother, the brothers and sisters try to console him. So we're only going to give one girl by name Dinah, but then by the time Joseph is carried off into Egypt at 17, we have one passage that says the brothers and sisters. So at some point, there's going to be at least some girls that are going to be born that we don't have the record of, and we just get that one little glimpse of that.
Was this just a cultural thing that it was okay to sleep with the handmaid and if you couldn't have a child? I mean,
Well, and if you notice, we use the term Ishmael is Abraham and Sarah trying to help God. So it's a part of the family tree. And as we're going to notice, every generation, those little kind of initial, she's my sister type thing, oh, let's help God and bring her in. Every generation is going to intensify those little faults as it's passed down. And because this has been a part of the family tradition. And the other thing I want you to notice, all of this is taking place while we're up with Laban up in the foreign country, and we'll come back to that in a second. So we're 6-2, and then we come to Issachar. Leah is going to have 2 more, and the words are hire or reward. And there's this whole thing about from Rachel wanted some things that her son had, these mandrake things, and so she hires the chance to sleep with her husband again, and Issachar is the product. And then by the time Zebulun is born, dwelling, God has endowed me with a good dowry, and now my husband will bring, it should be me, presents, or he will dwell with me, he will honor me. And the score is 8-2. I don't know how to say this, and so help me, because no matter, I'm very conscious, if you're on one side or the other, being male or female, there's things you don't understand. But when I look at this, my heart goes out to Leah, because you can be ahead 8-2 and still not feel loved. Do you know what I'm trying to say? And this happens in other areas, in other ways. Just having 6, I don't know how to say this. In one sense, if you didn't feel loved in the beginning, 6 sons later isn't going to help you feel loved within itself. And yet my heart goes out to her, because both of these girls are just in kind of a non-win situation.
Well, she was tricked, Jacob was tricked into it in the first place,
Yeah,
the situation, so what's he supposed to do?
exactly. So finally, Joseph is born, and this is going to be very, very sad, but it's true. Joseph means increaser. God has taken away my reproach, and may the Lord add to me another son. And look at these terms. God remembered her, God hearkened to her, and God opened her womb. And we're going to see she is going to die. It may be as long as 8 years later in fulfillment of what she's prayed for. 11 sons are born out of the promised land. And then they're finally going to leave Laban. They're finally going to come back. And they're in transition when they're coming back. And Rachel then starts going through this hard labor, and she dies in the process of delivering this. And how do you even say this? Her death wish was getting what she had prayed for. Nothing I can think to say comes out right. But do you know what I'm trying to say? This was what she asked God for. Joseph's whole name means more. May it be increased. May we have another one. And Benjamin is the answer to that. But the birth of the child cost her physical life. Son of my right hand is the father's name. As she's dying, she names him Benoni, son of my sorrow. And Jacob renames him son of my sorrow or affliction, the son of my right hand. Now, just one comment, and then we're going to go back and do some reading. You can see why if Benjamin is, and I think it's, as far as we can tell, 8 years younger than Joseph, why Benjamin later, why Jacob does not want to send Benjamin to Egypt. Remember the sorry brothers finally show up, and is your father alive, ta-da-ta-ta, and then they figure out we're not going to get any food at all, but you've lost Joseph, and then the son of my sorrow was mom's name, which now dad calls the son of my right hand. This is part of the reason why Jacob is going to be so reluctant all these years later to send him to Egypt, because he's already lost his favorite son. Any comments? Yes.
I'm, as you say, it's like a soap opera, but I'm always been taken by the fact that, the actual turmoil between Leah and Rachel. But when Rachel finally has a son, it isn't, I have a son. It's, may God give me another son.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the only, I just can't imagine that being her thought after all those years. And the focus goes right back on my job is to give my husband sons.
Mm-hmm. But she's behind 8-3. I mean, I totally, you can see why, in my mind, I always think this is the General Hospital part of Genesis, just because of just all of the stuff that's going on and all the emotion. But let me say this. Isn't it amazing how God's providence and God's will is worked out without ever violating anyone's free will? And the promise that I am going to make you like the sands of the sea, and on and on. 70 people are going to go into Egypt. And then, like I said, we'll come to this later. 603,550 fighting men come out of Egypt. That doesn't count teenagers, that doesn't count old men, that doesn't count women, that doesn't count sisters. It's, to my mind, if the fighting men are 603,550, there can be up to 3 million people come out of Egypt. Wouldn't you think? I mean, easily. If that's the Marine type, the fighting group guys, and then you add the rest of the boys and men, and then you add the women and sisters and everything else. I'm in my mind, it's like taking the state of Oklahoma toward Arizona.
If each one of these 13 or 14 or sisters had 13 or 14, it wouldn't take long.
Exactly. Okay, let's go to the front. We'll have to walk through some things, but I wanted just to kind of start with that and kind of let that sink in, and there'll be a very brief summary, Lord willing, when we finished. Jacob's life is a wrestling with God and his fellow men. Heel grabber. And I'd like to illustrate how conflict, this wrestling, was a feature in Jacob's life, both, and I'm going to use the term domestically and with relatives. Real quick, Isaac and Jacob, both of the mothers were barren, and the children are born as a miraculous birth. The barrenness is an extended time, so Abraham is going to be the time from 75 to 100. Isaac is going to be from 40 to 60 before the boys start coming. And there is a reversal, even all the way back with Cain, Abel, and Seth. The younger, God chooses the younger over and over. Isaac has an older half-brother. Jacob, by deception, is going to get that. Joseph, as the younger, is going to be selected. And there's just kind of this feature that goes through the families, is that God is oftentimes going to choose the younger. And this is under 1:3. How ironic. Even inside their mother, Jacob and Esau are struggling, and when they're born, it's just hard to imagine that Jacob just reaches over and grabs his heel. I say this as a compliment, not as a cut. For those of you who know my younger brother, he has been the younger brother of the family all his life. He just came into the world, and his nickname was Smiley in school. My mother says, Kent, tell me those jokes first before you tell them at school. And I told you, he would take an honest spanking if he got a good laugh. There would just be this twinkle in his eye, and in my mind, the older brother, I'm going, no, no, no. And there was never any discussion or hesitation. I mean, we didn't get abused, but we got legitimate spankings. And in Kent's book, a good laugh is worth a good spanking any day. Some people just have certain traits, and from the time he's born, Jacob is the heel grabber. And the irony is that he and his father-in-law are going to have this tussle back and forth, back and forth. And just before they leave, Jacob says, you know, he's changed my wages 10 times. Well, the competition between the two is very warranted because of that. When you read through Genesis, 10 times there's the term, these are the generations of, this is number 2. And most of the things about Jacob are recorded under the generations of Isaac, his father. But this is very interesting to me. Most of Jacob is in between Ishmael, which is Isaac's older son. And then there's a short record of Esau, Isaac's elder son. Sorry, I should have said elder brother, is Ishmael. And then Esau, his oldest son. And neither one are in the line of promise. This is why I love getting to do classes like this. I had never noticed this. When Jacob flees from his brother, he is 77 years old. I'd never noticed that before.
We don't think of it that way.
No, we don't.
Young people.
I'm thinking 20s and 30s type thing. This whole deception, I'm putting the skins on, pretending to be your brother and all this stuff. Jacob is 77 years old. Okay, the 12 sons of Israel are born during the next 20 years. So these 12 sons are conceived between, 11 especially, between the time he is 77 and 97.
So there could have been sisters in between those brothers.
That's what I'm saying. We're just told of one in the record by name, and then when we see sisters, and then you've got 4 ladies involved in this, then that's always a possibility. But notice, and this is just to close out on his life, Joseph is going to be in Egypt for 20 years before they discover he's there. And so Jacob is going to go to Egypt when he's 130. He will live in Goshen for 17 years, and he will die when he's 147 years old. I had never noticed that he was 77 years old when he fled from his brother. That just puts, to me, a lot of things in kind of a whole different light.
We would say he's old enough to know better.
I couldn't think of the best way. I was just going to say he's not a teenager, but see, that's what I'm saying. And then you look at this, and then you start having all these kids when you're 77 years old. General Hospital just continues on through that. We're going to read some highlights. Genesis 28:15. Laban, father-in-law, said to Jacob, would you serve me for nothing? There's the 2 daughters. And notice, the older is Leah, the younger was Rachel. Leah's eyes, translations will say, was weak, but Rachel was beautiful in form and appearance. Jacob loved Rachel and says, I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter. Well, I better give it to you than any other man. Stay with me. So he served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of the love he had for her. I'm sorry, 7 years is 7 years. Jacob said to Laban, give me my wife. They gathered the people, they had a feast. I don't know if we've got a veil on. I don't know if the tent's dark. I don't know what the circumstances are. I don't even know how to say this. How do you possibly spend the night with her sister and not know that it's who you're supposed to be with?
A little wine involved in that too?
Sorry?
A little wine involved?
Maybe a little wine involved, you could. I just can't even hardly go there in terms of imagining. So he brought Leah, so we're in 28-24. Laban gave his female servant Zilpah to his daughter, and in the morning, behold, it was Leah.
Dale, it's 29. Genesis 29.
Okay, did I get the wrong one? Thank you.
Yeah, you got 28 on there.
Okay, thank you. If you correct me on that. The chapter's 29. Good. I appreciate it. Thank you. So, can you imagine the tone of this? What is this you have done to me? Did I not serve you for Rachel? Why have you deceived me? Well, we don't do this in our country. This is not in our custom. Spend a week with her, and then I'll give you the other one for serving me another 7 years.
He should've got his 7 years, should've got a refund on that deal.
Refund or replace. So he completed the week, and then he gave him Rachel, and then gave her a female servant. And so Jacob went into Rachel as well. He loved Rachel more than Leah, and he served Laban for another 7 years. I went back and forth and copied these, so I may have missed all the chapters on this. So,
I was checking that.
yeah, checking it, and we'll try to correct. So, like I said,
I always, when I was younger, I always thought he had to serve another 7 years before he even got to be with Rachel. But then later on, I realized that, well, he
yes.
got to be with her and then still worked 7 more years.
And to me, the intensity of the competition happens in that both of them, he starts living with both of them a week apart. And you just kind of go like this. The Lord saw that Leah was hated. He opened her womb. And then here are going to come these boys. So here's Reuben, see a son. And then the Lord has heard this. The second one is Simeon, heard. We conceive and have a third one. Now this time my husband will be attached to me. I bore him 3 sons, and he's called Levi, attached. And then here comes the fourth one. This time I will praise the Lord. And she calls his name Judah. And one other thing, this is going to be the tribe from which our Lord's going to come from.
Can I ask a question? So when it said
Maybe,
the Lord-
maybe not.
When the Lord saw that Leah was hated, was it because she was,
Loved less would be,
because I mean, if you pick girl A over girl B because she's prettier and she's got more to offer, I mean, that don't mean I hate girl A.
I would, sometimes the word hate is used, sometimes it's legitimate hate. Sometimes it's also used to mean love less. It's a quantitative type thing, not just an active, I just hate you, but I love you less.
But he had a lot of sons for hating her, so.
That's right. And she wants to,
Maybe. Maybe she's hated by Rachel.
well, I'm
Well,
sure,
that's what I was getting to, was, because
well, you'd have to, you just, this is not fair, under any circumstances. And then you can see why by the time Leviticus is written, God's going to say, we're not going to do this again. You can marry, well, let's just leave it this way. You cannot marry sisters. So are we okay with 31?
Haven't got there yet.
30 verse 1. Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children. She envied her sister. Give me children or I will die. Well, what can he do about that? His anger is kindled. Am I in the place of God? Here's my servant. Go into her. So now we start the competition. So here's Bilhah. And they bear a son who's going to be Dan. God has judged me, has heard my voice. And then the next one is born through the handmaid, Naphtali. I've wrestled with my sister. So Leah saw she had ceased bearing children, so she took her servant Zilpah, and she bore a son through him, and she called him Gad, good fortune. And then a second son is Asher, happy am I, the women will call me happy. And then here we have this whole thing with one of the sons brings these items back from the field, and Rachel wants them. And so Leah hires the opportunity to sleep with her husband for this. And from this, she conceived and bore a fifth son, Issachar, Zebulun, wages and hire, 30-20. God has given me good endowment. Now my husband will honor me because I have borne him 6 sons, and she called his name Zebulun, or honor. And then here's the girl by name. In verse 21, she bore a daughter and called her name Dinah. Now, here's the passage, and I just slipped it in here. There are other daughters that are not named, and here it is, Genesis 37:35. All his sons and all his daughters rose to comfort him. This is when Joseph disappears, and he won't be comforted from that. So we just find out kind of in a statement, yes, there are other daughters, but we only know one of the daughters by name. And there's the passage, it's Leviticus 18 and 18. If you're Rachel, I would just say, finally, God remembered, God listened, God opened her womb, and she bore a son. God has taken away my reproach, and she names him Joseph, and may the Lord add to me another son. So the contest continues on between Laban and Jacob. There's all kinds of conniving and going on, and this thing about which ones of the sheep are mine, and I don't understand this in terms of putting these striped popular type things, but something took place, and they're going to trade sides both in terms of the spotted and the plain, and it's heel grabber dealing with a father-in-law who is his equal in deception. And as we're going to see, eventually Jacob is going to tell the girls, your father has changed my wages or deceived me 10 times. And so there's just all kinds of conflict between son-in-law and father-in-law. So Laban is away shearing sheep. An angel appears to him, 31:11, and I'm the God of Bethel, verse 13. Go out of this land, return to the land of your kindred. Laban pursues him, accuses him, and this is significant, of stealing the household gods. And the same way we would have a deed to property, people feel like the household gods are kind of like deeds to some of the land or things. They were part of that, but they were also household gods as such. Rachel has stolen those, and she tells her father that I'm in my period, I can't get up, but she has hidden them in the saddle, whatever that she's sitting on. And as we're going to see later, they're going to come to a point, and Jacob is going to say, we're going to bury all the gods under this tree. So the household gods are going to be a part of the journey that are coming back, and other idols are going to be there, and later they're going to have a separation from those things. Then there's a fear of meeting his brother for that, and we're down to chapter 31. And this is such an amazing thing. Jacob wrestles with this, and I will just say angel, through the night, and his name is going to be changed from heel grabber. And in verse 28, your name will no longer be called Jacob, but Israel. And Israel means he who strives with God. That answered my question. And he names the place Peniel, the face of God. I've seen God face to face. So this is significant. The only son that's born in the promised land is Benjamin. all the other boys are born up with the father-in-law and all this other stuff, and finally on the way back, and it's just so hard that she names him son of my sorrow, kind of not her dying breath, but as she's dying, and then Jacob renames him from that. The pillar is put up.
It's 32, by the way.
Okay, 32, thank you. And the pillar is put up, and it's there to this day. She got what she prayed for, but it cost her her life. Last page. Benjamin, the son whom the father depends for comfort, a symbol of good fortune. The right hand, a symbol of strength and honor. So I refer to them as the first family in terms of the promises. Yes, the land, I will give you descendants, and through you I will bless all nations. But what I want you to notice is that Rachel is buried near what later is going to be Jerusalem and Bethlehem. So they're heading south when Rachel dies. But the only thing, where I'm from, we call it the family cemetery plot. Everybody know what I'm trying to say by that? A lot of small communities. Yes. And, you know, we have bought 4 plots for $25 a piece at Lone Oak next to the wheat field. And that's kind of our extended family burial plot. Everybody else, other than Rachel, are going to be buried in the cave of Machpelah. So you'll see the verses, Abraham buries Sarah there, he's buried there. Isaac and Rebekah are buried there. Jacob is buried there. And Leah is buried there. I'll have to do this in a couple of sentences. I did a funeral once with a guy who had been very worldly. He decided to straighten his life out, went cold turkey with drinking. He had 2 former marriages and a live-in, and he probably died because he went sober and had been partying for decades. The family went to great lengths to organize this to keep the first wife separated from the second wife and keep her separated from the live-in. So grandmother is sitting with this beautiful blonde-headed girl from one lady, a dark-headed girl from another, and we have all the stuff that goes through. We look at the body, and then the live-in then stops and wants the other 2 to make sure that she knows that her lipstick was the last one that's on her husband before we bury him. We needed a referee's license. If you have 3 former wives of the same guy at the same funeral service, and you look at this, with all of this competition, Leah is the one who finally gets buried in the family plot.
You know, the big question there is why the 2 former wives even there in the first place.
Probably because of their daughters. So Jacob's name, supplanter, deceiver, heel grabber, he who trips up, after he wrestles with the angel. Israel, the EL, so every time we hear Israel, you know, we sing this beautiful song, Hear, O Israel, he who wrestles with God. Antagonism, rivalry, jealousy brings about the birth of 12 sons, which became the 12 tribes. The rest of the Old Testament records how these people wrestled with themselves. You know, we're going to have Judah and Israel. We're going to have 2 different tribes eventually. They're going to wrestle with their neighboring countries, and most of all, they're going to wrestle with their worship and their loyalty to Yahweh, to the Lord. What began as the bitter competition and rivalry between 2 sisters married to the same man is carried on for centuries. And as a nation, Israel lived up to the name that was first given to the patriarch Jacob And a lot of times when I hear the word Israel, I just simply think, oh, he who wrestles with God. And that virtually is a one-sentence description of the rest of the Old Testament.